You're listening to Mark of the Maker. Hey everybody, you're listening to Mark of the Maker, and I'm Mark Steiner, and this is episode 43 of the show. One of the things that people really enjoy about our show is the interviews. Folks like the history, they like the topical stuff, but it seems like by far the feedback we get is that folks love the interviews. And so we have a great one for you this time around with a true OG in the game, someone we really all consider a good guy and a friend of the show. So we'll get to that in just a second. Let's make sure we have our whole crew here today. Michael Birch is with us.
I'm here.
All right. We got Mr. Tom Cryan.
Hey guys, had a little technical difficulty, but I'm going to make it, I think.
Tom's a survivor. We're figuring it out as we go. We got new microphones thanks to our Patreon pals and merch sales and other stuff. So we're sorting it out. Tom's still on an old one, but we're going to make it work this time and figure that out later.
Yeah.
All right. And we have Mr. Sean Kendrick.
Hello.
All right. So we've talked about having this guy on for a little while. He's a friend of ours and someone who's been around the community a long time. And we're really thrilled that he's taken the opportunity to join us. So we have Mr. Sal Manaro with us today.
Hello, everybody.
There he is.
Hey, Sal.
Hey, Sal.
Great to have you on the show, man.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you.
Oh, yeah.
We would ask that you say hello to America, but we have like 6 listeners. So say hello to the 6 guys at home, Sean, or Sal, that are listening to this thing.
Hello to everybody who is self-quarantined.
Right. Topic of the day, right?
And remember, there's nothing better to do than listen to Mark of the Maker while you're stuck at home alone.
That's right.
It's the only thing to do.
It might be the only thing to do. That's a fact. So we wanted to have Sal on because we're all familiar with him and know him. And we know that there's people out there that have heard of Sal and his work and maybe even had a couple of his knives, but might not know some of his history and background. Sal, I think, has a little bit of more active in the scene, less active in the scene thing over time, and we'll get into that a little bit later. And so we'll talk through that as we go. So Sal, tell us a little bit about how you grew up. Were you did you grow up in the same area where you live in now, or did you end up where you are now? Or tell people a little bit about that.
Well, basically, I was born in Brooklyn and moved to Long Island when I was in kindergarten, first grade, and grew up in one little town, but by comparison to Brooklyn. And then married in '89 and moved to where I am now. Pretty much been in this same area ever since.
Okay. So you grew up maybe not as a city kid. You were born as a city kid, but... Yeah,
we came out to Long Island and basically grew up on Long Island. It was a no sidewalk situation. We rode our bikes everywhere, and, it was in the 70s, so everything was a lot different than it is now, obviously. And, had the kind of childhood that, I've heard so many guys talk about that have been on the show with you. And it's like I could relate because, we did that kind of thing where we'd go play Army Man and ride around in the woods and whatnot. We had woods, but not like some of you guys do, but it's little pieces here and there,
Yeah. In that time frame, your bicycle is your life, right? It's like your lifeline to your friends to be able to get on your bike and roll.
Used to ride my bike to my first job.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys were any different, but I don't know how I survived through like that elementary school period. We built the most rickety ass bike jumps and crazy stuff, jumping over your friends with your bike.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Yet somehow nobody died, at least hopefully not. Nobody I knew did anyway.
What was a young Sal like? Were you a good kid? Were you a troublemaker? What was going on there?
Wow. I think I was a good kid. I mean,
good.
I don't know. I think I was a good kid as a little kid, and then maybe I became a little rebellious as I got older, but that's
it happens.
Normal thing, I think.
Yep.
So what was that first job you said you rode a bicycle to?
I actually worked on a horse farm where I cleaned stables and took care of horses.
So you were just like a general working hand at the stable? Is that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about 14 years old.
And so you ended up getting involved in some other stuff when you were working at the farm, right? There was somebody that you got kind of connected to and started doing other things.
Once a week, a farrier would show up and shoe the horses, and I found that was very interesting. And as it turned out, I wound up working for another farrier for quite a while, for a few years as an apprentice. And that led me to a lot of pretty cool places on Long Island where I'm at, and some other places as well. So it was a lot of interesting work as a kid.
Very cool. So how did you come to be in contact with or find or get connected to the other farrier that you ended up kind of learning from?
Well, I went from one farm to another, and we had thoroughbreds that were very expensive, and they needed a specialist to come and work on these horses that had certain hoof conditions that kept them from walking properly. And the guy that came to fix them was the guy I wound up working for. And he was a world-class farrier, like, Hall of Fame type guy, which I didn't even know there was such a thing. And I wound up driving out to his house every day for a while, working for him. It was pretty cool.
That is cool. So what is that? I'm like, what's the function of that? You get to his place and then you load up in a vehicle and go somewhere and do work at different farms?
Yep, we'd go from one farm to the next. And, back then he had a pretty big account list of people to do. And we did everything from boarding barns where people would come and, basically like there might be 50 head in the barn, and everybody comes from a different place to ride them there or whatever the case is. And once a week we would, they'd get shod differently. Like they wouldn't get shod once a week, but it would be in a rotation. So you'd always have a place to go. It was busy.
Yeah. Yeah. So boarding farm, that's exactly what was next door to me when I grew up. That's the farm stuff I did as a kid was at a boarding farm. They had Morgan horses. And so like you said, there's a whole bunch of horses there. I think only a couple of them were actually owned by the people that owned the farm. And the rest of them were all boarded there.
That's the way it was. And he actually had as one of his accounts the United States equestrian team.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So these jumping horses were worth a tremendous amount of money. And, me as a kid getting under them, I had to watch everything I did.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to hurt them.
So knowing nothing about shoeing or being a farrier or whatever, this thing is much more customized than people might think, I assume, based on the horse. And like you mentioned, its health of its hooves or shape or problems it might be having. So is it really kind of like a custom tune to the horse kind of thing?
Absolutely. And that's where the farrier has, wears the hat of like almost like a veterinarian, in that he has to judge how the horse is and give it what it needs to straighten it out when it walks. And I really at that point knew nothing about that. I would just say, okay, I'll do this, and that was it. But when they would come in walking on their hind feet, and when they would walk out of the barn, like you would think it was a different animal. So he was able to do some good stuff for the people's horses then.
Yeah, kind of a much broader scope job than people might think.
Oh yeah.
Right? Not just hammering out shoes of a specific size. It's all tuned to what needs to happen for that particular animal.
Oh yeah.
So the guy that you mentioned, the Hall of Fame, I think you had told me that he was actually inducted to the Farriers Hall of Fame. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
So what is that? It's not just being a great blacksmith that gets you into the Farriers Hall of Fame. It's the combination of all that stuff, I assume, about being able to diagnose and do something specific. And
I really can't tell you what's involved with that, but he did more than just put shoes on. Like, he followed up with hoof care products that he would actually have manufactured from recipes that he figured out. So it's like a lifelong endeavor, for him. And I think that's probably what had a lot to do with it. But this was going back quite a ways, and a lot of things have transpired from then till now. But reconnecting with him recently, and the man is now 78 years old and still shoeing horses.
Yeah.
Makes me feel like a punk. He's 78 years old and still getting on the horses, and that's not an easy job. It's not an easy job for a young guy.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's humbling and inspiring at the same time, maybe, right?
Absolutely.
The guy that ran the Morgan horse farm next door to us, he was a guy who got hurt earlier in his life. So he had a fair bit of difficulty walking, but he did anyway. So his legs and knees were all jacked up. And, but man, I've never seen a harder working guy in my life or been around, you know what I mean? Spending real time with anyone who worked harder than that guy. And, sometimes I'd be like, man, wait, are you okay? Right? Because he didn't get around very well. And he's like, nah, it is what it is, right? It doesn't mean the work doesn't need to get done. Let's go.
Yeah, it's something to be said for perseverance.
For sure.
Watching like a quality farrier do their work is kind of like watching art. There's no everything is so efficient. No hammer blow is missed. It's just like boom, boom, boom. And you're like, oh shit, they're done. Yeah. It's just such an efficient type of practice when it's done right.
Yeah,
kind of.
You don't want to get caught under the horse doing the wrong thing. That's
no
half of it. You're working you feel like, okay, as soon as I can put this foot down, the better.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Now, being a farrier is pretty tough on the body, right? Is that from the people I've talked to? And it's interesting. I know I didn't realize you had a background in this, but that makes 3 knife makers that I know that have been a farrier in the past. Of course, Rick Hinderer and Gene Wiseman.
Yeah.
I didn't know that myself.
Yeah,
I don't either.
Yeah, it's definitely not easy on you.
Yeah, is that because of the horse or the whole the physicality of blacksmithing, the combo of the two, really, or what?
Well, I mean, as far as I was concerned with it, I was an apprentice when I did it, so I was never to the point where I did every aspect 100%. Right. I mean, towards the end, I was doing a little bit. I was doing more, but being under the horse is what really gets you. It's if they cooperate, it's not so bad. But when they decide to lean on you, and then it's a different story.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah.
Was it something, Sal, where the working the metal piece of it was what got your interest, or was it just the whole being around it, or what was it that pulled you in?
That's an excellent question, because it has to be, because I was really into the metal aspect of it. Turning a horseshoe is I mean, we forged stuff in elementary school when we had shop class. So we made keychains and screwdrivers and stuff with it, in the forge, and heat treated and stuff like that. So it was like, I guess from a young age, it was part of what. But the reality of how metal is in my life is like, that was a little tiny part of it. And I guess I don't realize from one minute to the next what I'm thinking. Sorry about this.
No, that's all right.
I don't know. It's such a long time ago that it's not like, I mean, I've never done anything that didn't have metal involved with it, whether it was welding or
yeah,
farrier work or anything else. But
kind of in your blood, and you didn't even realize it.
Past. Yeah, exactly. I think so.
Well, can you imagine if there was like forging classes at schools now? I mean,
it'd be great.
That's hard to imagine, really.
Yeah. And archery too, right? We had archery.
Yeah. That was part of like 4-H and stuff for those of you that, did that sort of thing. That was all part of it.
Hmm.
I would love to see some archery, that forging, small bore target shooting, all that.
Yeah.
We should start our own school.
Yeah.
Get Abby to come teach with us.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Yeah, that fits in with our other episode we're working on getting together, the Moran episode, the whole start your own school thing, right? We'll get into that another time.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
So, as a farrier and doing blacksmithing work as part of that, it's, at least at some level, you're around a forge and other stuff. Did you ever get the urge to hammer out a blade or do knife stuff as part of that?
Forging knife blades wasn't really what I was thinking about then. So I bent some horseshoes and learned how to do some basic skills with that. But I'd have to say no. I really didn't have any interest in forging blades at that time.
Yeah. Was that kind of your first real exposure to moving metal, though? Was that kind of your metal intro, or had you done metal stuff before that?
No, just basic welding is something I've done before that. And it was always like one job would overlap the other. Sometimes it would be concurrent. Yeah, when I was quite young, I wound up basically being a helper for a welder. And I guess at that point, it would have been, it's hard to explain it, but it would have been my mother's fiance.
Yeah.
And a young kid. So we would go out on jobs, and I didn't know anything about anything, and, just drag out the torch or roll up the leads and cut a little here, weld a little there. But, that was my introduction. And then I went to welding school in high school. I did a whole Wilson Tech program. And so I had a welding machine in the back of my truck in 1984,
Yeah.
So the blacksmith work was different, but it was still metal, and it just combined. I think my mother wanted me to be a veterinarian or something, to go to school and do this and that. And I'm like, well, I had to work with my hands. And
right.
That would have been, if I could have stayed with the guy, I would have probably had a good career as a farrier. Who knows? I can't really say, but he brought a lot of guys up that way. And,
right.
I just basically stayed with the welding side of things, and which led to some machining, and, I guess that's the evolution of it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think all of those things that you're talking about they're like you said, very hands-on, and they're things where, not that you don't learn through written material, but you learn, I'm going to call it the hard way, right? But you learn it by doing it, or by people showing you, or being mentored, or whatever, right? I mean,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, you've talked about maybe a recent acquisition. Did you end up picking that up?
Yeah, actually, I have a propane forge that would be for heat metal to either forge blades or to bend horseshoes or forge weld horseshoes, and it would go. You set it up in a shop with an anvil, like you see on YouTube everywhere, or you could actually set it up in a mobile workstation and do it outside, And I recently acquired a farrier truck that contains the forge, the anvil, and I'll set it up with a lot of other tools that I want to keep separate from my other knife making tools. So it let me do stuff in a bigger space than I actually have, if that makes sense.
Yeah, very cool. So with a farrier's truck like that, how does that work? You roll up to the site and then unload that stuff out of the truck and get to work, or do you do part of the work in the truck, or what's the mechanics of that?
Anything that has to be done to a piece of metal would be done basically on the truck. In other words, the back door would open up, the anvil would swing out. It's on a bracket. It would swing out.
Yeah.
And drop the leg, and the back section is all compartments that would keep the heat away from anything else, so you can put different tools in. You could put a grinder, a drill press, and various small tools that help you shape metal. And I haven't done anything requiring that yet, but in the back of my mind, my goal would be like, okay, if I could make some Mokame, or maybe even one day forge some Damascus on my own, that would be,
Yeah.
That's like the icing on the cake. That's down the road, but it might help me be able to do that.
That's very cool. I know for Gus Ciccini, right? He's been doing kind of expanding he's always expanding the technical side, right? The dude's doing wizardry over there in Brazil, right? But he's making his own layered titanium. He's making his own Sanmai and Damascus now and other stuff. And I think somewhere in there, it's that quest to learn thing, I think, right? Where
that's just another level. I mean, what stuff he's doing is absolutely amazing. And if I could do, just make a little simple thing at this point, I can only think in small terms, one step at a time type thing. But his steps have just gone from A to B to Z and instantly, seems like.
Yeah.
Doing some really incredible stuff.
Right. But that seems to be, for some knife makers, very much a common attraction, right? I know Michael likes the same kind of stuff, making Damascus and Mokame and just kind of other parts of the process that make it feel like a more total skill set, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's just from the way I feel about it, it might be just another way to challenge yourself, because if you made a knife using methods that you've accomplished, you could keep doing the same thing and not grow, or you could try to reach out for a different method, or and I think some of these guys have exploited so many methods of doing it that, okay, now let me just make the metal,
Right.
I mean, I have a ways to go to get to that point where I could even start thinking about needing to make the metal, but I don't want to let the opportunity pass to be able to do it in the future.
So let's circle back around a little bit. When you were a kid, were knives a part of your life in any part?
Absolutely. I always had a pocket knife on me since I can remember. It was just a daily thing. I used it on the horse farm, open hails, bale hay, and just that was it. I never not had a knife on me. As far as the carry, was a buck 110. The buck 110 I have, I should have grabbed it. It was only made in 1981, and I bought it brand new in 1981.
Yeah.
So, because the way they had to put the little 4 dots or the triangle or whatever. So, it's, yeah. And so I bought it new in 81, so that would have been, I was like 15, 14.
Yeah.
So that was like my first real knife that I bought. But I had I don't remember what it was. It just said camp on it.
Yeah.
It was like a black plastic 3-blade jackknife. Not even a jackknife, just a camp knife, right? I don't know what you call that. The basic, almost like a Boy Scout knife.
Yeah. Yep.
If you could, right? So the 3 blades. And I had that, but who knows, 10, 11, 12, something like that.
Right. Seemed like everybody had one of those. I still have my Boy Scout knife.
I've lost more knives than I think a lot of people even have.
Yeah.
Not you guys, but some people,
So you said you were into the sharpening thing too.
Yeah, I would always try to keep my knives as sharp as I could. I thought that was a thing to try to get decent at. And I would have an Arkansas stone and some oil, and I would hone my knife until, it would shave hair. And my brother would never really believe any of the stuff I would say, so he wanted to check the edge on my little 3-bladed pocket knife that I just sharpened, and he puts it on his thumb and just rails his thumb wide open, fillets it completely open, and and saying I told you so didn't do any good, because I got the knife taken away from me and I probably got smacked in the head at the same time for letting him come anywhere near it. But
right,
that's the things you do when you're kids.
Yeah. Younger brother?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So how did you learn to sharpen? How did that you learned that as part of your farm side of things, or how did you figure out to even know to get an Arkansas stone and what to do?
I don't know. I mean, that's just the stuff you heard from guys that were older than you, and
yeah.
You ask the guy, if you make 2 angles disappear to 0, that's sharp, but it's like just to take a light touch at the right angle each time, you'll eventually get there. I don't know. I was, it was probably 1095 too, the blade, so made it pretty easy. But I mean, it was something to do. There wasn't video games back then, and the TV probably had like 4 channels if I was lucky. If you had to go on the roof and bend the antenna, so you do stuff like sharpening a knife was something to do.
Right.
So I might have had more practice at it than people have patience for today. With everything else there is to do, I don't know what else to say about it.
Yeah, well, it was a different time, right? Because that's how you learn stuff. then, right? There was no YouTube. So,
No.
I mean, on one hand, it's magical, right? I haven't hired an appliance repair guy. Sorry, appliance repair industry. I haven't hired an appliance repair guy in 20 years, right? Or 15 years or something, because I just go to YouTube and look it up. Why does my dryer act this way?
Right.
Oh, it's replace this little magic box somewhere, or this, some goofy part, and it walks you through how to do it. So from that perspective, it's awesome to have access to the information. At the same time, so much of what I learned as a kid or even as a young engineer was in an era before all the internet stuff. So it was all tribal knowledge stuff, right? It all came from some guy you knew, or, you know what I mean? Some guy you worked with, or somebody that you knew at school, or who knows what, but there was a mentor involved, and that's very powerful. And it's kind of a bummer that I think younger people don't have so much of that anymore.
No, that's true. Especially now with everything that's going on, they can't even go to school. They have to learn everything on the computer.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
Yep, for sure.
So what, did you get into any fixed blades when you were like in high school at all? Running around playing commando or army or whatever? Did you, or just stick with the pocket knife?
Yeah, actually, I do remember going through a phase where I got into big fixed blades, and I think it was shortly after high school. It wasn't actually in high school. A couple of years later. I remember having like a Mueller Bowie. I don't know if you ever heard of it. Made in Spain.
Yeah.
Mueller Maoflon or whatever they are.
Yeah, those are great.
I had one.
Big, heavy. Yeah, I had that, and I don't know. And you know what too? I used to carry them around, like I would just wear it, and then it offended people or not at the time. But I guess at that age, it didn't make much of a difference.
Right.
No.
Maybe you don't care so much at certain points in your life, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Any part. I don't care at any part.
Right. Sal, you want to introduce your dogs?
Okay, so you can hear Ted and Roy. I had a feeling this would happen at some point.
It's all good.
And
welcome to Mark of the Maker, Ted and Roy.
Okay.
What kind of dogs, Sal? So it's obviously small dogs, right?
Yeah, they're one's a Havanese, and the other one is he's a mix. I'm not sure what he is. He's a small dog.
That's awesome.
It's great.
Not the first dogs to be on Mark of the Maker, but maybe the first ones that got a formal intro.
Sounds like somebody's ankles are getting torn up.
Yeah. No.
They're just excited, that's all.
They're all, yeah, who knows? I couldn't even tell you. It's too far from where I'm sitting to find out what it is.
So where did it go from there, Sal? So you worked at the horse farm. You did that through high school and then afterward as well, or what's the timeline there?
That would have been 86, right after high school.
Okay.
I mean, the horse farm was earlier. The horse farm was since I was in, junior high, I guess. But then the blacksmithing was a couple of years after high school.
Okay.
And I guess I got to the point where I couldn't work with the guy I was working for anymore, and I had to do other things, and I went on to my second metal career, which is ironwork and welding. So,
how did that happen, Sal? How did you end up doing the iron work and welding thing? Was it like I need a job and there's something to do and that's available and I can go do it, or that you had skills that fit with it, or?
Well, I guess back at that time, I guess my mother was engaged to a welder. And I would go on jobs with him. That's how that started. And that was right around that same time.
Yeah.
So it was, get a job and then now there was a chance to do something else. And, I started welding at that same, in that same time frame, I guess. And,
right.
I wound up getting a job at an iron shop after that. So,
what kind of welding were you doing? Like structural or like fixing things?
Structural, yeah.
Structural?
No, structural, basically structural. We put up buildings and, field welding. And the shops didn't start until after that. The shops that I got into were after I got married.
Oh.
But it was all field work and welding, and actually, general portable work. Besides, I had a welding machine in the back of my truck in high school, so
Yeah.
there was a lot of overlapping things, I guess, that I forgot about.
Right.
Now, Sal, you're an iron worker now, right?
Yes.
So how did you transition from being a welder to an iron worker?
That's a good question too. So I did a lot of non-union work from high school to, I guess, about 15 years ago when I got in the local, and it carries over. That's a lot of what we do is welding in the field, and it's it's a career that's given me an opportunity for retirement.
Right.
And from what I understand, you're in the same local that Bob Dozier was in, right?
Well, not the same local, but the same union. Yes, he's.
Okay. For some reason, I thought
Locals are based on location.
but he was working up there for quite a while. I thought for some reason you guys were in the same local, but maybe not.
I thought he had worked in Boston, from what I remembered.
That might be true. He worked up and down the coast. I know that.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually got a chance to talk to him not too long ago, and it was very interesting. It was
For sure.
yeah, that's one guy I'd like to go see.
Come down. He's not far from me.
That'd be great.
It's like an hour.
That would be great.
I'd probably wait a few weeks.
Hop on a plane. Come on down. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
Well, why did you? Yeah, wait a few weeks. I get it now. Well, the ticket's got to be cheap now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You can get there for 50 cents.
I keep forgetting we're in a crisis.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. As knife makers, we work at pro level social distancing already.
Yeah.
That is true.
Life doesn't change a whole lot.
So Sal, the kind of stuff that you were working on and work on today is all like structures for bridges and buildings and stuff like that, right? Like big metal structures, right? And yeah, okay.
I got that famous poster of the guy sitting across the steel beam of the was it the Chrysler building or something? I just imagine that's you.
Yeah, nah, not so much. We did some crazy stuff when I was younger, but now it's a lot safer, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. But
Yeah.
definitely get your blood going at times, though.
I wouldn't last. I'd be like, I can only work on 1-story buildings. Is that an option? Or anything over 10 feet, I'm not in.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, that could be limiting.
Mm-hmm.
All right, man. So we know a bit of your background now. What was your first exposure to custom knives?
That would be the New York Custom Knife Show in Manhattan when it was at the New Yorker Hotel. A good friend of mine, Jim, was living in my neighborhood at the time, and we basically he took me to my first knife show, and I was amazed. That was it. Once I went into that show, it was my gears were turning.
Ah, nice. Game on, right?
When was that?
That would have had to be over 20 years ago. I'm not exactly sure what year, though.
Do you remember any of the knives that stood out to you at that show that really, grabbed hold of you? Maybe still ain't let go?
Well, I mean, it was Emerson Knives that brought me there.
Okay.
So that was, that was my first alliance with custom knives. But then walking around the show and seeing guys like Bob T, and just that whole thing was, still in my memory pretty hard.
So that New York show was your first knife show, Sal?
Yeah. Yep. That was the first one I went to, and that was at the New Yorker Hotel. And I remember it being like a 2-level thing. It was in the basement and it was kind of up and down. It was like a half a flight up to another room, and I met like half the guys I'm friends with now were all at that show. And,
Yeah.
it was a long time ago.
That's cool. That's a heck of a show for your first knife show.
Yeah.
Well, no, I didn't exhibit there. I went,
Yeah,
I went
that's what I mean.
as just to check it out. And I'm looking and thinking to myself, you know, it seemed plausible seeing some of the stuff. I'm like, I just had it in the back of my head that I could do this, you know, and then as I opened up to other knife makers and had their ear, and they told me, you know, the ins and outs of what to do, was just, you know, the help was incredible right away from every knife maker that I stopped and talked to.
Yeah, you already had metal on the mind, so I'm sure some of that didn't seem too crazy.
Yeah, I definitely, that's the case.
Now, had you had any machining practice then, or strictly the?
Not really. No, I mean,
Okay.
I worked in a shop that had a machine shop, and I did work in that for a little while, manual mill and lathe and stuff. But I didn't know. I was just told to do this, and I did that. You know, it wasn't like I ran a machine shop or anything like that. So very limited with the machining, I would say, at that time.
So where did it go from there?
So I basically started customizing Emerson knives. And I got to the point with that where I felt, you know, I have so many as a part. I could now get to step 2 and cut parts, and step 3, put them together and try to figure it out. And I don't know if I'm answering your question or not, but
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, totally.
It was the transition from customizing knives to making my own that got me into the work that I'm doing now.
Sal, prior to that New York show, had you thought about or tried to make a knife prior to that? Or was it really that show that kind of got you sparked up on the idea, hey, I could do this?
I think that was the case. I really don't remember actually trying to make any knives before that. I mean, I made a bunch of knives out of saw blades, and if I'm thinking of the timeline correctly, it was all around that time. So
yeah,
I think
Just-
that's
A question for clarity: Were you already pimping Emerson's before that show, or was that you started doing that after that show? And then how did you get into that?
actually, I think it was before that show, because I remember going to that show and showing Mr. Emerson the knife that I did, and the reception I got there gave me the drive, I think, to go forward.
yeah.
It was an Emerson Mark 1 that I did the backspacer in, and
Very cool.
I actually have it right here. Yeah.
Oh, you still have it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Kidding.
The knife was a gift from my friend Jim, and I couldn't sell it.
Right,
You
right. Well, very cool. So did you kind of go on that path where you started trying to make fixed blade knives, or did you, when you...
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was fixed blade knives, and I made a lot of 6-inch fighting knives. Not a lot, but to me it was a lot. I would have the steel heat treated by Paul Boss. I didn't do anything with guards, but I did glue the handles on all of them, and did my own leather work, and was involved with, I guess the USN forum was the first experience with the internet and knives.
Yeah.
I was about to say that to know to send it to Paul Bosch, you either had to have some blade magazines or, some forum stuff.
Yes, absolutely. I used to get Blade Magazine and get a lot of the information I needed out of that.
Okay. When did you join the USN?
That's a good question. I remember before it crashed
Yeah.
Yeah.
in the beginning.
Yeah, that was a big thing back then. I'm pre-crash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crash.
Yeah.
Yep. That was pretty funny.
So that was probably, I think the crash was 2002, maybe 2001.
Yeah.
I think, if I remember correctly, which I usually don't.
That's right around that time frame.
It makes us feel old when we talk about how old, some of these forums have been around.
Yeah. Well, it's 20 years, right? It doesn't feel like 20 years. But
No. When he was saying like, oh, this is 20 years ago, I was like, oh, that seems like a long time ago. I'm like, wait a minute. I was reading those same forums.
Yeah. I remember. all of you guys were inspirational to me too, because I saw what you were doing and you're posting your work, and then I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is cool, and here I am talking to you after all this time. It definitely is cool.
Yeah, you remember the times of taking photos and taking it out, putting it on a computer. We've talked about this before, how long it took to do like the whip threads. Forget about it. I couldn't. Yeah. That's where I was, because I felt like I was always what do they call, like a troll, like looking, but I can't post anything because it would take me all day to do it. And I'm like, it's true. So a very distinct thing that you do is like a lot of checkering. Is that what you did on the Emerson?
Oh yeah, that was it. The checkered backspacer. That was
wow.
Hoorah.
So how did that become your thing? Because that's a very noticeable and very distinct thing that you do. A lot of just very crisp, clean checkering type of stuff.
I don't know if I should say this or not, but the man himself told me to put it on every knife I make.
Nice.
And I try to listen to smart people.
It's a smart thing to do.
Yeah.
So Sal, that wasn't your intro to checkering, was it? Did you do checkering on guns and stuff?
No, that was it.
Really?
I used to shoot IPSC in my 1911.
Yeah.
All checkered, and that was the inspiration for doing that to begin with, because, it's a tactical time, right? That's when tactical was like becoming known to people, like, and I figured if it's, if it goes on a 45, it kind of belongs on a knife too. I couldn't see why not, And at the time, most knives, in fact, all the knives I remembered seeing had a smooth back on them, nothing protruding, and I just thought it would be something. And I don't know, it put me in a box a little bit too, because it took me a long time to figure out how to do the checkering consistently, and it stopped me from going forward with other aspects of knife making, which can be just as challenging, so it just seems like it stacked time on top of time.
Yeah. So it was the first time that you had done checkering was when you tried to make a backspacer and checker it.
Yes.
Wow.
How'd that learning curve treat you?
Yeah.
Oh boy. I got a big drawer full of used files.
Oh man, don't we all from back in the day?
Right. And they don't last long when you're doing titanium.
Yeah.
But
I used to love your checkering. I still do. It's just such a clean look. And I used to checker like the thumb ramp part of folders and stuff.
Yeah.
Or even on the fixed blades. But then I was using so much 1095 and W2 that, man, when I went to quench, that's exactly where it would go tink on me.
Yeah.
Oh, stress riser.
Yeah, that's why I had to start going for the 1095 and stuff. I used to had to go to a round file type thing.
Right.
But man, that stuff looks so good on your stuff.
Yeah, I love that look too, but I switched from the thumb serrations that I used to do to a rounded one. One, I can do it on the mill, and two, I had one break through there, and I've always known it was a stress riser. So
yeah,
backspacer's perfect place to put them.
I think they look really good on folders and stuff like that. You can't get away with the carbon steel.
So can I ask you a question now? I guess either Tom or Michael, with jimping on the top of a folder blade, do you see stress risers? You're starting from that?
I don't think it's an issue with stainless steel. Not for what, unless somebody. I mean, I think the thing is, if somebody did stick it in something and pry, that's where it would break.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's why I changed on my. I think on a folder it's fine if you're using stainless. It is still a stress riser. If it does break, it will break there.
Absolutely.
But on the little fixed blades I'm making, I got one back, a little bird and trout, and it just broke right through there. You can see exactly. And basically the guy sat on it, which, I mean, yeah. And it just snapped right through there. And I replaced it, but I decided I was going to switch. So.
Okay.
It's just the carbon steel. It's such a violent heat treat that it just,
right.
It wants to destroy everything in its path when you're doing it.
Tom, when that thing broke, was it from the jimping to the choil?
I've got it right here. Hold on, I'll pull it out.
That would make sense, right? That's two spots.
Nope, it's about a 1/4 inch front of the choil.
Really?
Yep.
Maybe because it's thinner there. I don't know. Or maybe I guess because you put the load there.
That's exactly where the back notch in the jimping was. It just broke straight down. So I think it just flexed it right there, and it just, boom, broke straight down.
Yeah.
That was before you ground it also, right?
No, this is a knife that was out in the wild.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
So this was out in the wild.
Yeah.
How thin was that blade? Wasn't it one of those super thin?
Yeah, it was a burden trout, so it's 95 thousandths to 100 thousandths.
It was probably improper heat treat.
I'm looking at it right now, and that grain size is beautiful.
Probably because of that D2.
Wow.
Here we
Someone's
go.
gonna-
Buckle up.
You son of a bitch.
No, I when I used to also do that stuff over a Spyderco hole, so you can imagine that very thin, area. It was bad for my hormones, but I love the look of it.
Disaster, man.
Oh, it was. That's why I had to quit doing it.
It looks good. I definitely like the way it looks.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right. So Sal, you took an Emerson that you had a checkered backspacer that you made for. You took it to the New York show. You showed it to Ernie. It sounds like he thought it was cool. And Ernie was the guy that told you put it on everything you do?
Yeah. Basically, after I started making my own knives, that was definitely, he definitely suggested that I make it part of everything I do. As far as giving you a style, that would be my style, I suppose, from that.
Well, very cool.
Apart from that, you also have a very distinct, I think, design element that it's very recognizable across the room type of thing. And we've talked about the importance of that before. How did that come about? Was it something you searched for? Or is it just kind of come naturally?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a very good question. I just, basically, they all start on pencil and paper, and then a plastic pattern, and they don't look the same now as they did 20 years ago. So I know they're evolving, and I try to go towards aesthetics, I would say. I don't know. It's such a hard one to answer because I draw inspiration from everybody else's work as well. And
Yeah.
as long as I don't feel like I'm copying it, like there's not one knife in my mind when I'm drawing a knife. So it has to just be whatever residuals left in my head from everything else I've seen.
Yeah. Well, I know personally it's like it was very important to try to define yourself back in those early forum days.
Absolutely.
And I remember thinking, I need to find my own style, because I started out doing a bunch of moans, and a lot of people were doing cord wrap stuff. And when I was, doing the same thing, and then once I quit trying, I think that's when I finally started getting my own little design element going. It's kind of crazy. Is that kind of how it worked with you too?
Yes, absolutely. But, I've actually had not doing it full time makes it a little bit different, because you can concentrate more on how you want the knife to look in the end versus how many you need to get done, if you need to get done a certain amount. Like I have been full time for a little bit of time, and I know what it's like. And I give you guys super credit for being able to put out the quality knives that you do design-wise and fit and finish and everything, and still making a profitable thing to do, or doable thing to do. I don't want to...
You can toss profitable in air quotes if you want.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
exactly. It's still doing it.
Yeah.
You're living a dream, so it's a good thing.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
I got to dream better.
Dream bigger, Tom. Dream bigger.
Now, I remember we used to do a ton of, like, when the compound grinds were real popular, back to this kind of early 2000s tactical time. Used to do some beautiful, like, 4 grind type of almost daggery type blades. I love those things. Were they just a pain in your ass to make?
Yeah, they were. But that's all I could do. Once that people said, "Oh, yeah, that's can I have that? Can I have that?" And then how small of a knife can you make it on?
That's what's a pain.
Yeah. I had one dedicated grinder to do the tip and one dedicated grinder to do the hollow grinds. And
Yeah.
it was, pretty interesting.
You made them look so clean, and it would frustrate me sometimes. I'd be like,
Frustrated me every time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I
man.
see some of the
that's-
older ones. I'm like, oh.
Dude, I look at those grinds and just get anxiety looking at them, much less having to step in front of the fucking grinder.
yeah, no kidding.
Nice. Well, I've made some fixtures to help me.
Oh, well, gosh, I'd hope so.
Yeah, you're one of those guys that have always. I envy that you've made like really cool fixture stuff. I've never been that guy that can just be like, oh, I need to do this for my machine, so I'm going to make this fixture to help, set on my rotary table, do this or that. And I love that, and I wish I was more of that guy.
Well, I guess it has good points and bad points because it was a big pill to swallow to do that because it was. When I first started making knives, I didn't use any fixtures at all. I had one grinder, and I did everything freehand. And I made a lot of knives, including folders.
Mm-hmm.
And I really challenged myself on the grinder to do it well.
Yeah.
But when I saw the possibility of making this a particular model and then making a consistent run, I had to say to myself I needed to do something different as far as making it more efficient, and fixtures were a big part of that. I mean, I got big work rests I made on a couple of grinders, and from there, the Bob T's book, the original, was a big inspiration for that. And I saw what he did, and I did some similar things, and we talked about it, and it's worked out.
Yeah, I'm not even talking about like the grinding stuff. I'm talking about like for machining and stuff like that. It's like Bob T has that same thing too, where he'll need a certain slot cut, so he'll make a fixture that sits on it, and I envy that kind of a machining ingenuity. I don't think I have it, or maybe the ability to make that sort of stuff.
Well, I don't know. Sometimes I'll just have an idea for something, or sometimes I'll have a tool that I'll use for something else, and it works out. So,
right.
It's not all like out of my head. Oh, I need to do this. Sometimes it's just whatever I have at my disposal, I have to make it work for what I think I can do with it, and that's it's not, I'm sure it's not orthodox machining when it comes to stuff, because as I'm seeing all these machinists on the internet, I'm thinking to myself, I wasn't doing it like that, and then it just changes your way of thinking, and I think it leads to cleaner work when you could use real machining techniques that you might not possess. Like I didn't possess coming into knife making. So
yeah, that's going to be Sean here after he finishes all his classes. He'll be looking down on us.
No joke.
Right?
Yeah.
Hey, we'll see when the classes get finished, man. It's hard to do fucking running a Haas lathe from an online course now.
No doubt.
That's true.
That's
awesome.
FYI, if you want, check out the Haas site. They're having some wicked sales.
Oh, that CL1, they dropped it like 15 grand or something.
Dude, they got 20% off on everything on the site, or 15% off on everything on the site, and then you can get 20 to more off depending on what you buy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now I got a question for you, Sal. Were you the first one to TIG weld a clip onto a knife?
I can't say that I was the first one, but I've never seen anyone else do it.
I haven't either. Now, I always thought that was such a smart thing. I was like, man, did he just he welded it on? And it was such a cool thing to do.
I made a folder a long time ago, and it was a big folder, and I tried to do this thing with the clip where I put it through the scale, and I attached it to the liner from inside the liner. So all you saw coming out of the scale was the clip, the bent part of the clip. And it was basically from that I thought that I put the TIG welded part. It gives it the same look. All you see is the bent part of the clip coming out of the handle. and people would ask me, well, what if I wow it on a seatbelt or something? And I said, well, just send it back to me and I'll straighten it out, But then I realized it was something that the customer couldn't do themselves, or wouldn't want to do themselves. So that made me shy away from doing that.
It was a neat feature, and I'd never seen it before until you did it. It's kind of interesting to have that in your pocket.
It's super cool. I remember, I think when Sal maybe posted pictures of it on USN, I remember sending him a message and saying, "Oh, that is slick." It's just a cool idea, right? And it makes it so clean looking, especially because I think when I first saw it, it was on a knife where the whole handle had, one of your kind of rotary checkered patterns or something on it. And it didn't interrupt that at all, right? So it was just this super clean, beautiful thing.
Thank you.
I didn't even know that titanium could be TIG welded until I saw that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, actually, I set up a microscope, and I took the automatic lens out of a welding helmet, and I basically just spring clamped it to the fluorescent light that's on the microscope. Put the ground clamp on my ball vise that's under the microscope, and then I could zoom in up to 60 power and have what I'm TIG welding be at the right focal point, and I could see it through the scope without needing to wear a welding helmet. It worked out pretty well.
That's pretty smooth.
That's very cool.
Now, man, the machining currently on your knives is excellent. Everything looks clean and crisp and very well done. When, where, and how did you start picking up the machining skills you currently have?
Wow, that's a good one, too. I mean, I did a little bit of machining.
Is it just accumulated over time, bits and pieces here and there?
Yeah, that's basically it. It's definitely accumulated over time. Took some of the tools that I used on the job at work and, was able to get a mill, was able to get a lathe, and I'm still like scratching my head. There's so many things I want to do with it, and then every time you get a tool, it opens up another question. So,
So one of the things that you mentioned earlier about your design aesthetic evolving over time is that your earlier stuff was much more on the organic shaped. There was lots of rounded kind of features. It had bunch of like recurvy type shapes even in the handle, right? And then it seemed like you went in a direction of doing stuff that was kind of on the more angular side, right? Like I'm thinking of the Stingray, and maybe that's just that specific design, but stuff that was a little less curvy and a little more what I'll call modern shaped. And then, like with the GMC and other stuff, it's got this very crisp, clean look. And again, that could be just part of the model, but it seems like that's where your design stuff has gone over time. Do you see it that same way, or is that it just kind of is what it is and it changes on its own over time and it's not really something you think about?
Yeah, I think it changes on its own based on what I think people want. And I'll say it like that because when I really started making knives, we were at war, and everybody wanted a big tactical knife. And,
right.
The way it seems now, people are gravitating towards more refined pieces, and that's where I feel like I want to try to focus my energy.
Yeah.
No, we're definitely in we went from big, scary, tactical to the more gentleman pocket knife, I think, is a very popular look, and I think you've done well with the knife that you've brought to market, the GMC.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, now, man, I mean, if you want a 1-2 punch, the bow tie fixie and a GMC folder, that's a hell of a 1-2 punch and as classy a combo as you're going to come across.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
At the New York show, I legit wanted to come over and buy that first come, first serve bow tie. But I didn't know if that was like a dick move to buy as a maker. Like, wait till the doors open.
Well,
I've been in the same position. I've always wondered if that's kosher or not. But
yeah, so you don't do it because you're like, it's kind of a dick move, but we're still collectors.
Sometimes just want to be selfish.
Right.
I wouldn't even question it. I'd just do it. So.
That's what I love about you, Sean.
Now,
Well, I didn't know that, but thank you very much for saying that.
thanks for making cool ass knives.
Yeah.
I've got a question for you, Sal. Early on, you said you kind of started out making some of the bigger fixed blades. Have you made any big fixed blades lately? Is that something that I've missed?
I really haven't made any lately. A couple of years ago, I made one that's about 4 pounds. There's a two-hander I make every now and then, but it's
that's a big one.
Yeah, 2 feet long.
I'd love to see your take because like the little fixed blade, the bones that you made, or the bow tie, that's such a cool piece. I'd love to see your like a new modern take on a 3 to 6 inch fixed blade. Seems like you'd knock that so far out of the park it would be silly.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, now you got me thinking. Thank you very much. I mean, I kind of, when I did that bow tie, I was just picturing it as a little neck knife, and that's pretty much where it's at, or a little pocket sheath knife. But then I think people might have seen the picture of it in the beginning and expected it to be bigger.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try to maybe make it a little bit bigger and see where it goes. But right now, the second version, which is a 2-inch blade, 2.25-inch blade. It seems to be in my pattern anyway. That's what I'm making now. But I mean, it's a different shape. But sometimes if they get a little bit too big in the same style shape, it loses something, if that makes sense.
Yep.
No,
perfect.
It's really hard to scale stuff up.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'd like to just see a new design, a fighter, because like everyone else, your style has evolved, and I think, man, I'd just love to see like a little utility fighter, maybe a 4-inch to 6-inch blade somewhere in there. I think it'd be so cool, man.
I'll have to definitely put that on my to-do list.
Do it.
Yeah, man. I personally think the bow tie scaled up to about a 3.5-4-inch blade would make for just a nasty defensive carry knife. Period.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, you've already got an exposed pommel on it. You've got that wicked upswept blade. Shit. I mean, it's basically asking to hurt people.
You're just writing that down.
I am. I literally am.
I think that GMC is a really nice shape that, like you said, if you just put it on the Xerox and made it big, it would get funky probably. But it's a shape that, like lots of your stuff, I keep going back to the Stingray because that's a shape that I think has the ability to scale in length more than in width. You know what I mean? Or just taking the GMC and stretching out to make it a big knife, like, length of 150% and height of 110 or something. You know what I mean? One of those kind of ratios. It would be a very cool shape, and it would be a very aggressive shape, which is, people love that.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that, Mark, because I didn't mention this before, but I got a pantograph machine, and I'm trying to learn how to use that, and part of it is working things in scale. And I scaled up the pattern for the GMC to try to make a template for the pantograph, and it looks ridiculous. The size I had to make it, And I haven't gone any further than that right now, but that's definitely happening. So scale and stuff, once you put it through the copier, you see, oh boy, yeah, this is going to be, you'd have to change it in different directions, like you said.
Exactly,
to have it work right.
Yep.
Well, and that's one of those things. It's sometimes hard to explain to a customer because, I went through that kind of really big folder phase, and someone would ask for, I want this and that, and be like, well, I've only got a 12-inch wheel or whatever. I can only grind so high, unless you change that to a, flat grind, and the whole aesthetic can get blown out. The ratios get blown out real easy.
So, you know what? It just popped in my head, and I'm going to ask you. When you grind, I've seen guys use a real small contact wheel and pull up some really high hollow grinds.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Whereas when I do it, that basically the diameter of the wheel is dictating the print it's making on the steel exactly to the best I can. So I don't know if you're really limited that way but I guess it depends on how you grind.
You can roll it out a little bit, but you can only roll it out so much, so you have and I think Tom knows what I'm talking about here, where you kind of have the hollow dug into the very top, and then you kind of can pull it up just a hair So you have a kind of flat bottom edge.
Yeah, like a straight razor type grind.
Yeah.
You can take it pretty far, honestly.
It
Jerry
makes it hard.
Jerry's like what's his last name?
McGinnis?
No. Was in
Hossam?
the bat Hossam. Jerry Hossam is the king of that.
Yeah.
He does it. I don't do it, but I know people can do it.
Yeah, let me put that where I have limited amount to do that.
Same.
It doesn't mean other people can't do it well.
So what you're talking about, Birch, is where you use a small contact wheel and you're basically creating like a almost more of like a parabolic shape where the contact wheel diameter is the arc at the top of the grind, but then you've pulled that up from the edge where it's sort of flat-ish and then blends into the contact wheel diameter at the top or close to it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, you can get away with doing, but then then when it comes to hand rubbing and stuff like that, if it's not done perfect, you'll see waves and,
That's where it starts to suck.
Mm-hmm.
But Jerry does that too. I don't know. And he grinds upside down too, I think. He does some crazy
I remember him
wizardry.
telling me that. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's probably easier to pull it a little bit doing it upside down.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. I think Walter Bren does it like that as well, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't
You
know.
gotta push it then. I don't know. That's some wizardry right there. I don't understand that any way, shape, form.
I just want one of those 20-inch Bader, or was it Bader that made one?
Yeah, the big Birking.
Yeah. I just want that.
If nothing else, just a flex, man. That would be. Oh, you grind on an 8-inch wheel?
Flex on your knife maker friends.
Yeah, just for fun.
Nice wheel, buddy. Didn't come in man size, I guess.
What one of the things that I think is one of the aspects that helps make Sal's work so crisp is the just really, really beautiful hand rub work. Is that something, Sal, that was just a practice thing, or is it something that to you that's like part of the look of the knife is to have a proper hand rub, or like kind of how did you get into the hand rub thing as part of your style?
I guess that's a very good question. I don't know. I think it's because I started getting to the point where I started to see them getting better, and I felt it would be the sign of better quality on my end for me to pursue it further. And I see guys like Todd Begg doing what he's doing, and I'll ask a question here or there, and it'll lead me to a new way of getting to the final step in the hand rub finish, and it's been working out pretty well.
What it sounds like you got a secret you're hiding there. What you got there?
No secret. You guys all know about it. It's the die maker stones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of sandpaper do you like for your final grits?
I don't know. Usually 1200. 1200's been it.
Like
1200's been it. It's been it's been 400, 800, 1200 on the stones, and then just a 1200 finish from that.
That looks amazing.
It's been working out pretty well. But it's just all the time is with the stones. And that's, and I've been not doing as much of it lately as I have been recently, if I could say it like that. So, but it's definitely been, and then how you manipulate the blade while you're working on it, as far as just making it, instead of putting it in a vise and having it in one position and fixing yourself to that position to do all the work, you wind up being able to, you get a stiff neck real quick. So when I do it when I work with the stones, I use a ball vise, and I can position, and I keep it unlocked, so I can spin it, turn it, keep it in every angle that's the most comfortable for me as I'm working on it. And then when I get to the sandpaper part of just dragging out the lines and putting the paint job on it, if you will, I'll put it into another vise where it's stationary. So if that's something that helps anybody, that's something that's helped me.
Now, this brings up another thing. You're a vise aficionado, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Have you purchased any new ones?
No, not since we spoke last, actually. That was I got that baby bullet, and that was my last one.
So
Keep looking.
I've got one. Do you have it on the rotary ball stand?
Yes. Well, here's what happened. I bought a York 60, which is just a little bit bigger than a baby bullet, and I bought that with the Wilton power arm. And it's the heavy duty power arm. It's not the light one that you'll see on the baby bullet. So it weighs about 40 pounds. And I have it mounted on a lower bracket. Yeah, it's pretty heavy. It's actually the one that I saw in Bob T's book, where he made the Jorgensen clamp on it. And I've always wanted one of them, and I found one, I guess it was on eBay. And but I was disappointed that I didn't buy the baby bullet at that time, and I wound up buying that after that. And I set that up also on a ball mount, but it's not the Wilton ball mount. It's actually a Berry's Bullets. I don't know if you're familiar with Berry's Bullets. They make archery and gun brackets with the same ball mount. It's a little bit lighter duty than the Wilton, and it's a lot more affordable.
Berry's
Got a
Bullets.
couple of the Wilton little ball mounts, and I've got a baby bullet on one. It's on my folder bench. It's really a very useful device.
That's cool.
You've got a power arm, Tom?
I don't know what the power arm is. I've got the little mount that it goes on with the ball where you can swivel it all around.
That's actually a power arm, but it's just that's the smaller one. That's just like the size that I have on my baby bullet, but you have the real one.
Yeah, I've got one on a baby bullet, and then I've got another one that I was trying to find another baby bullet, but I couldn't find one. So I've got an extra one.
An extra power arm?
Yeah.
Well,
let's negotiate, he said.
Let's talk after the show. Let's see what we can come up with, because someone doesn't have a power arm, has been looking for one.
I don't know what to tell you. I got a couple.
All right. Well, this has been Vice Talk.
Tom's like, I don't know what to tell you. I got a couple, and you don't, pal.
It's going to stay that way, too.
Exactly. I didn't hear him offering anything, just to make completely clear.
No, he didn't sound excited about my need for one.
No.
It seems like stuff just comes here and never goes out.
Can I ask you, Michael, how are you doing your finish work without one?
I have a thing I made a long time ago that's basically just a piece of metal stuck in a little vise, and I have a pivot screw coming up, and then I tighten the blade down to that, and I do all the bevels that way. And then for the flats, I come in, I tape those up, and I do the flats separate after the bevels are done, on a piece of granite.
Okay. You tape them up. Oh.
Well, I tape so I can hold one side, and then I go along like that. So I don't do the flats in a held position. I actually move the blade across the sandpaper to do the flats as the final.
That's what I do also.
Yeah. But yeah, I've got like just a stationary thing. I need a power ball or a power arm with a ball so I can move stuff around.
Okay. I thought I saw that you had a Panavise that has.
I've got a Panavise. It's fine for like sanding backspacers and stuff like that, but it's not as robust as it could be for some of the stuff I want to do with it.
So you have it where you have the pivot screw holding the blade on a piece of metal. The piece of metal is in a vise. So you're doing like a ball. It's just not as many degrees of freedom or not as easily. Is that?
It's not as cool, and that's pretty much all that's important.
Yeah.
I want the old piece of history, and I don't have it. That's what always weirds me out. Is like you'll see someone screw it just have like the blade hanging out. That weirds me out.
Oh yeah, I stuck a bolster in my head one time doing just that. It was it stuck in there hard. Oh, it was no fun. Yep.
Well, just the hand rubbing part. How do you not bend the tip or I like having something backing it up, underneath that stuff.
Right. I use a magnet with tape on it, and I put that in a vise.
Oh, nice.
And if it's a non-magnetic blade, I use an expandable pivot. So it's like a collet, basically. It'll tighten up on the pivot when you open it up. And that works pretty well, too.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because you don't want it to pivot on you when it's on the taped piece that you're holding it with, because it'll scratch the other side, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But,
yeah, I usually have just paper towels underneath, so when I flip it and stuff, it's all fresh. And
yeah.
So the whole super crispy hand rub thing, where all the lines, the grind lines are still nice and sharp. You know, a lot of times you'll see guys do hand rub and they'll soften those up in the process, right? That's from not being careful enough about keeping the two sanding processes really completely separate from one another.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're doing most of the scratch removal from the grinder with the stones. That's the way I'm doing it.
Right.
And that's not changing the transitions between the hollow and the flat. So that helps me get them a little straighter. If you're doing most of your work with the sandpaper, then you have the chance of beveling your edges a little bit more, I think.
Yeah. Well, I've seen, like Jerry doesn't use stones. He just does it real clean. I think it just depends on how you're doing it. I think you can be good with either way. You just got to be real careful about not rolling them over.
Yeah. Like I say, that's just me, because I mean, I've seen his hand rubs too, and they are great.
Yeah.
I mean, and I heard too, some people use the contact wheel itself. It's another way of doing it.
Yeah, Mayo does that, doesn't he?
I've done that more than once.
Yeah.
You feel like a total retard when you're doing it.
I don't think that's the proper word we use for that.
Oh, boy.
See, I told you, Tom's one to watch out for.
Oh, man.
Why you got to be like that, Tom?
That motion doesn't feel natural to me, but I'm sure it's, after the hundreds he's done, it feels perfectly fine to Mayo.
Yeah. When you're standing at your grinder, it's not running and you're like sliding your blade back and forth. Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, I think he has one cut in half and on his bench. Is that wrong, or is that? I thought that was a picture I saw once.
Probably. It works for me. It works pretty decent on the grinder because you just keep rotating the belt a little.
I tried it, but the son of a bitch kept moving on me.
You feel
stand still.
Well, we'll have to have Tom on sometime.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's got to have, but I think I'm gonna have to turn it into a trip to Hawaii and go do it.
Hold up now.
Sit with him. We'll put that on the Mark of the Maker.
PI tour of the islands.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get Ed Cope to fly us around because he's flying that Magnum helicopter now. So we'll get Ed Cope to take us around. We'll land at Tom's. We'll do a little Hawaii knife maker thing. I'll chalk it up to the Mark of the Maker expense account. It'll be all good.
Mm-hmm. The Aloha edition. I'm ready. When we can travel in 5 months.
There you go. Michael wants to go on site too.
Awesome stuff. Another thing that we kind of talked about was since you live in a bigger city, you have to deal with more a limit kind of restriction on size and space of your shop. How does that work for you?
Yeah, it's not fun, but it makes me think of, how far I can take it with where I'm at now, because I'm maxed out right now as far as what I think I can do with the space that I have. So it just means basically setting limitations is what it means right now for me.
Yeah. Well, you said you had like a line on 2 or 3 pantographs, and they were dirt cheap compared to like what we'd get them here. But then you're like, I don't have the space for me. It kind of broke my heart. I'm like, you need them all. Buy them all.
Yeah, and that's it. And I'm trying to make that work right now. And right now it's getting this truck is going to be part of making that work, because it'll take some of the stuff out of my little one-car garage shop,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the space you're working out of currently is a 1-car?
Yeah, well, that's where I have the biggest stuff. The mills and the surface grinder and heat treating and bandsaw, compressor. Then I have, half the basement is my grinding rooms and lathes and finishing.
How much fun is it to get those down in the basement?
Oh, yeah. I did them when I was a lot younger and stronger. Getting them down is easy. Getting them out is going to be another.
Yeah, there you go.
that mobile forging thing you were talking about could also maybe turn into other mobile things.
Oh yeah.
Call that sort of an add-on. Just run some heating and cooling to it, and you're good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it has potential. I know it does because, you know, like a blacksmith would set up his own shop. That would be his mobile shop. He would go from place to place and do, you know, they'll put a belt grinder in there, a drill press, and forge and anvil, you know. So anything that I would currently, I don't want to do the same operation in different places because then you start forgetting what you left off doing. But if I can at least put like the welding and the hot work, and the hot work isn't really part of what I do now, but I'd like it to try, you know, I'd like to try to make some Mocha-May maybe, or try to make a little Damascus if that's doable, you know. I mean, I see how it's done.
Yeah.
And I have some of the tools, but it's just another step, you know.
It is. I very much want to get back into that just because of the whole, like we've talked about, sole authorship thing.
Right.
I think there's so much to that, but it's finding time. It was supposed to be this winter. I was going to rebuild and do stuff, and then it's like, well, the winter just disappeared.
Right. That's what happens.
Mm-hmm. And you got knives to make.
Yeah.
So Sal, you've kind of, like you mentioned, right? You did this full time for just a little while. What kind of time frame was that?
About 2009, 10. And there. When I say full time, I was just, you know, I was working as a union iron worker, and the economy was in the tank, and there wasn't a lot of work out there, and I committed to doing it, so I had to fill in the void, and knife making was that.
So that's kind of the reality of being a part-time guy as a maker. Is there's times when you can make knives, and there's other times where your day job schedule doesn't really allow, right? And that's kind of been a fluctuation thing for you over time.
Exactly, and it's very frustrating at times. But, you know, I have to take it in stride because I know, like, the situation I'm in now is not going to be lasting. And, you know, you kind of need to make the money when you need to make it because, you know, knife making isn't really conducive to making money, especially at my level. I say my level because I'm always learning, you know. I mean, you put yourself into the next category of trying this and trying that, and it's not making inventory for you for sure, you know.
Fact.
Yeah.
Ask Birch
Very
how he
much.
knows.
Yeah, I definitely know that.
Self-inflicted distraction at times, right? It's like the balance of do enough of it to keep your sanity and not so much of it that you can't actually make a buck in the process, right?
Mm-hmm. And try not to be so hard on yourself that you throw everything away that you think sucks that may or may not.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, so one of the things that Sal has said a few times in this is that whole feeling like a new guy or a beginner, or not beginner, but you know what I mean? Always feeling like, it sounds like you feel like you always have something to learn, but I think that's part of what we've talked about a bunch on the show. As I think there's a lot of makers that are in that spot where they always feel like stuff could be better than where they are now, or their skills could be better than where they are now. And that's part of what keeps people motivated to continue to do better. And I think we've seen lots of examples of makers who kind of hit a spot and feel like they got it nailed, and they don't really change much or get better, or, you know what I mean? And I'm not sure that's a really healthy place to be doing that kind of work. Certainly if you're trying to do it full time, right? Or if you want to continue to grow your craft, you got to be careful about that, it seems like.
Can't be stagnant. Doesn't work for ponds, doesn't work for knife makers either.
You know, my frustration is the feeling that I'm losing traction in the times where I'm not spending mega time in the shop, you know?
Yeah, that's an always like a constant type of feeling like you're behind or whatever. And that's one that I'm always on. And it's weird to me to hear you say newer maker or whatever, because you're someone who I've always looked up to as a maker. So it's like, it's strange to be like, you newer, kind of like bullshit.
Well, I don't know. I think we both started pretty close to the same time, and you know, you've gone in an uphill path with knives since then, and that's pretty commendable.
Well, I appreciate that. I've won 0 dance contests, though.
Yeah, well, I tell you.
I think, Mark, it's important to find that happy medium on trying new stuff and sticking with what you know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It is. But you always want to try new stuff. You always want to
Well, yeah.
try to innovate, try to break out of your own designs, and I don't know. It's a weird type of neuroses.
Yeah. It's how we grow, but at the same time, you know, you can't always grow because then you're having the growing pains. And if you're trying to make money and you're always trying to do new stuff and run a business, it's kind of gets hard.
Yeah. It's also it's a great way to have a very unhealthy relationship with your creations. You know, if you fret about it too much or worry about it too much.
Good point.
There's a happy medium in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, and it seems like it seems like it's different for everybody. And it's not terribly different, right? All this stuff is intertwined, whether it's trying to evolve the design side of what you do or trying to evolve the physical task piece of what you do, right? Or even I get the feeling from Sal when we've talked in the past, when we talked here on the show about, you know, I think the idea of building fixtures and jigs and other stuff to try to help consistency in the work. For you, Sal, that's part of the fun of it, isn't it? I mean, at least that's what it seems like. It seems like a lot of those things that you're making, it's almost like a little puzzle thing. It's like, oh, I think I could do this better or more consistent. Let's go find a way.
That's definitely the case until you decide to do something different.
Right.
And then you have to justify, well, I spent all that time making that. Now I'm not going to use that anymore. So you go through this, well, is it worth it to make something else or just, you know, because if you're going to change directions, you need to be able to make your tooling to accommodate, I think.
Right.
I don't know. And then I guess we're all tool junkies a little bit too. So
Absolutely.
Skosh. Well, now, man, on that point, we've all got our materials that we prefer to work with, that we would rather work with. What are your favorite materials to work with currently?
Well, I mean, titanium is, you know, that's a staple.
Always a
but
classic.
besides that, yeah, I mean, I have this nice supply of vintage. I say vintage because it's over 20 years old. It's probably 30 years old. You know, Micarta. I really like it. Seems like I couldn't use enough of it in the beginning because at the time no one really wanted it. Now it seems like people want it. So
Right.
Is it natural?
Yep.
Yeah, I remember not being able to give away a natural Micarta knife back in the day, and now people eat it up.
That's for sure.
And they should have been on it back in the day. It's always been a classy, cool material.
Yeah, and then it seems to age too because it's gotten quite a bit darker than it was in the beginning. So I think that adds to its character.
Yeah, I
big
like
time.
it. I like it when you shape it and it's got that like real dark outside and the lighter inside. That's a cool look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Man, whenever you can have a synthetic material that has a bark and gives that contrast, that's always nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, I like the ivories and stuff too, but to work with this stuff it's always a challenge to keep it flat. So
Yeah, I like the idea of things that will stand the test of time, but yet still, for lack of a better word, patina, you know, or get a different look to it.
definitely.
And
And like
warm,
carbon
natural.
fiber doesn't do that.
No, it's not. I still like it, but yeah, I like when the Westinghouse gets a yellow color to it, or you know, some of that old stuff darkens up. It's fun.
Definitely.
Oh, man, some of the coolest stuff I've got has come from accidents of spilling WD-40 on material and then letting it sit for 10 years.
You want to hear about an accident? Something.
Oh, always.
Okay. I put I think it was linseed oil on some of this micarta to try to darken it up.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, I think someone might have told me to try it, and I put it in a toaster oven just for a little bit to warm it up. And it wound up having measles. Like it just bumps. Yeah, it grew bumps.
Wow.
It wasn't intentional, but I left it that way because it looked pretty cool.
I can see that.
Yeah.
It's a prime example of how women live longer than men. Stick it in the toaster oven. Sure, why not?
Right.
What's the worst that could happen?
Run a current through it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Guys, do that at your own. We are not responsible for any weird shit you do.
And I never tried it again. It was like I was trying to duplicate it for the new thing, but it came out funny. In fact, I think a guy has that knife now that's a friend of all of ours, I think, but let him see if he listens. Yeah.
He could self-declare if he wants.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny. Yeah, sometimes there's accidents that are happy ones, and sometimes there's stuff you try and it's like, oof, gets weird fast, right?
I fall on that side with a lot of my attempts. Well, that didn't look pretty.
I had that even just doing simple stuff like coloring these ray guns, where there were a couple things where it's like, oh, I just want to try this and see what happens. And I was like, ooh, damn, that turned out really cool. Now can I actually do it again, right? Sometimes there's happy accidents that just come together through some weird consequence that you're not exactly sure how, but boy, that's cool. I just can't make another one to save my life.
Yeah, I had that with some of the pods, whatever, had some sort of detergent on them or something, ramped them up to a higher thing, and it gave it like a tie-dye look. Yeah. I was like, well, that was just an accident. Hope you enjoy these.
Because you would never know until you try to do it yourself if it was on purpose. So.
Exactly. You know, it's really funny. That was when I first started doing the ray gun thing. It was for me it was a point of personal achievement when I was able to get finish and prep and anodizing to produce a blue that was as good as Sal's crazy indigo blue that he did on a bunch of knives some years ago. And that was the word straight out of my mouth. I'm like, damn, I finally got me some Manaro blue. Look at that. It was like this super rich blue color.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, you did a bunch of knives that way, and that seemed like, I don't know if you were the only guy that was able to get that color or what, but I associate that color with your earlier work for sure.
Well, thanks for saying that, but I think the time I spent making it polished, getting the polished look before I anodize it was the only difference that changes how the color comes out, because we all use the same color temperatures when we anodize. It's not like a magic number, I don't think. In fact, I have the old style rectifier on the where they hooked up to a
to a Variac?
Yep,
wow.
Hooked up to a meter. So it's not like I have to get lucky when I shut it off to hit the same exact number. So
Monero blue sounds like a color of a car I want.
It does.
It sounds like a paint Bob Ross would have used.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Well,
Just a happy accident.
And I'm telling you, if you said that to people that have been around a while, they would absolutely know what that color is. It's such a pretty color. Very striking.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and in that same era, you also did those clips that were like a lathe turned bar with a ball on the end. I thought was always so cool.
Oh, thanks.
You did some really cool stuff back in the day, and still doing really cool stuff.
I know what happened.
Where did it all go wrong?
Fell off. I just fell off.
No, I mean you've continued to do really neat stuff, and it's I don't know, it's
nice.
As long as somebody likes it when it's done, that's all that counts, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Where did that ball and pin kind of clip thing come from, Sal? Is that something that just sort of happened? An idea that popped into your head, or were you looking for a certain thing, or happened to have stuff sitting around that was ready to roll for that?
It was the idea of coming up with an inobvious way of doing something with a knife, like the lanyard hole or no lanyard hole. It gave me the possibility to put the lanyard through that part of the clip.
Yeah.
Instead of going through the knife itself. Saved me from drilling a hole through the whole piece, and it seemed to work. But it's not aesthetically pleasing, as far as the design of it, unless it goes on an angular looking knife to me. So I actually did put them on some of the bullseyes because, when you try something new and people like it, you want to try to do it again, and you do it as long as you think you could pull it off, I guess. And I don't really do it anymore like that because it doesn't seem to match the aesthetics of what I'm trying to achieve, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely cool. It's one of those things that sometimes you see a feature on a car or a piece of equipment or something else, and that can give you an idea, right? Like, ooh, that's cool. I could use that for something. That's what that makes me think when I see that pin and ball. It's like, okay, I've seen that shape on machine equipment or measurement equipment or whatever, right? And it's like, that's, you know what I mean? It's like it somehow translates from someplace else.
Yeah, I don't know what sparked me to do it. It was just, it worked for the knives that I put it on. But I haven't really thought about it in a while because I haven't done it in a while.
So, you heard Tom groaning earlier, right? When we were talking hand rub. He was making funny sounds. He's clutching the family jewels about how bad he hates doing hand rub. So what, for you, what stuff do you like in the process? What parts of the whole knife making thing do you like? Are you more like I'm a design guy and the work is to make the design come true, or I like doing a certain part of the process, or what's that look like for you?
It's changing now because I'm trying to make stuff a little different. So the machining aspect has become more challenging, trying to make more bolster lock knives and when I say close, I don't mean closer tolerances, but having smaller things fit together.
Yeah.
So cut paths being smaller and intersections between cuts being on the same line and stuff like that. That's become more challenging. But as I learn more about machining, it's become easier to pull off from one build to the next. So
yeah,
that's been the challenge of it.
Do you look forward to that piece of it? It's like, oh, okay, I'm because you learned something, it's like, okay, I can go use this now and try to make stuff better, or is it?
Yeah, until I've done it a bunch of times and it's not new anymore.
Wears itself out.
Yeah. Just to do certain things, like, I'll look forward to it when I have the idea to make a tool to do just to execute a certain feature,
Right.
And then now I'm like, okay, I don't want to do that. That's crazy. I have to do something different now, And basically because now with these pantographs, it's put my mind in another direction as far as how can I make them a functional part of my knife making. And I'm frustrated right now because they're not there yet,
Because you're still learning to use the pantograph or how to do
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
There's so many questions as far as like how to do certain setups that, and no one seems to use them anymore outside of knife makers and maybe third world countries because they're outdated. But they're definitely cool and they're definitely worth exploiting.
Did you join? There's a knife maker pantograph group.
No, I didn't. I'm going to write that down right now.
There's someone had invited me into it, and might be worth checking out because that didn't exist when I was using the pantograph, and I kind of wish it was or it were around.
Yeah.
Hit me with an ad to that too, man.
Yeah, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Down. But it's an interesting resource, and it's those types of things that kind of open a whole new dimension, I guess, almost to what you can do as far as like the inlays and things like that. It's kind of crazy what it allows your mind to do, getting your hands and the rest to follow.
I mean, I've seen the inlay work you've been doing. I'm sorry. I was just going to comment on the inlay work you've been doing on.
Appreciate that.
On your folders, and it's been the level of detail in such small parts that fit like that is really is neat. I enjoy seeing.
Appreciate that. I've been doing those on the CNC, and they've still been a headache.
I could only imagine.
So Sal, for the the hand rub thing, we've had a wide variety of people, right? Some people talk about doing work like that, or, like with the dye stones as being like a therapeutic thing. And other people are like, oh my gosh, it's a slog. I got to drag my way through it. Is that something that you saw part of the process you dread? We definitely have lots of makers that have joined us they hate that piece.
I don't really hate that. I enjoy doing it. It depends on the situation. Like I like to do it when, I gotta say it, if I'm in the mood to do it, it's great. You put the music on and you just, it's just, you go on autopilot. But when if you have a pile of knives stacked up and you have to do it, and you're gonna lose sleep and do it and it depends on your mood. I have to say it that way. It's just the situation I'm in right now.
I'm with you. I enjoy the hand rubbing aspect. If it's like you said, you're not getting ready for a show and you have to have it. But when you're not in a huge hurry, it's almost like sitting down and reading a newspaper with coffee. You're like, all right, I'm gonna sit right here. I'm gonna search for scratches. Sometimes I find relaxation in the minutia.
Yep.
Like, this is my task. Well, it's like, this is my task. This is my only task, is to look for scratches, eliminate them, make it look good. That's within my power. That's within my control. I can grind and mess something up. That is going into something that's out of my control. Yep. I don't know.
I'm thinking you guys like whips and black leather and zippers and shit.
Come on, man.
Oh, wow. I don't know why you had to attack me like that. I mean, I told you that in secret.
I think maybe there's some of that's not unlike, even like someone has a day job that has some craziness going on to it, and the one thing they really look forward to during the week is mowing the lawn, right? For some people, mowing the lawn's an ass whip. For other people, it's like, hey, here's a task that actually has a beginning and an end, and I control the outcome. You know what I mean? And I don't have to do anything. I listen to music. I can listen to a baseball game, sip a beer, do whatever, but I can make that happen. And when I'm done, it's done and it looks right. And that's my ability to control. And I've heard that from people that have crazy wacko jobs, right? That somehow is an anchor for them. So maybe this is
I'm one of those people. I think we've talked about that.
Yeah, I guess I can see that. It seems like I never have enough time, and that's just one thing that just sucks it up.
Yeah, but if you had to make as many knives, I mean, I don't want to say it like this, but at the production level that I'm at now, it's just night and day. I could justify spending the time on a knife to do it, but the way you're making knives, Tom, I couldn't imagine anybody sitting there hand rubbing them.
You have no fingers left.
I mean,
they don't make enough die maker stones for that.
Yeah, no kidding.
And
then
maybe that's going to change too. Who knows?
Oh, you heard it here first.
He's going to start hand rubbing everything. Beep, 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 beep.
I mean, it's not necessary, right? It's not, I mean, it really depends on the material too, right? Some materials you don't need to do anything with, and they're not going to, how you finish them is not going to help them tarnish or not tarnish. So,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
So, what do you dislike the most doing in the shop? What are you just like, ugh?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes it's like shaping pocket clips, I mean.
It's like a universal knife maker. Pocket clips.
Yeah, pocket clips. Everything needs a pocket clip, right? I mean, I don't know. That's what I'm fighting with now, because if you have a design that you think works without a pocket clip, and you put it in your pocket and it works without a pocket clip, and then you have every other person tell you it needs a pocket clip, it puts you in a situation where you have to decide.
It's a tough one. I did some, like what I called them tinies back in the day, and I was like, these don't need pocket clips. These are a perfect size for no pocket clip. And then because they would fit like in that watch pocket, sort of thing.
Right.
And then so the first person that would buy it, they knew they were buying a knife without a pocket clip, and they'd be like, all right, this is whatever. But the second person that bought it would inevitably send me a message and say, hey, I bought this, but it needs a pocket clip.
Right.
And I was like, shit. So no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Well, that's the hard catch-22, right? To Sal's earlier comments, you got to make what people want. At the same time, some of the stuff, I don't know. It's like not unlike our current situation, right? The cure has got its own set of problems, right? So it's like, okay, I'm going to give you what you want, and I'm going to take this design. Like the GMC is a great example of that, in my opinion, right? It's a beautiful little design, very slim, easy to put in your pocket, watch pocket for that matter. That's where I carry it, and it doesn't need a clip for me at all. I don't think it even would work for me as well with the clip.
It won't.
But people ask for it nonetheless, right?
Yep.
It would look strange with a pocket clip. It needs to be sleek and small and clean.
Well, let me say this, if you don't mind. I have one, right?
Mhm.
And there's a reason why I have it, but it has a pocket clip on it. And I carried it with the pocket clip for a little while and found that it tend to work its way up and out of your pocket just because it's not big enough to sit deep enough, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
it's in the right position. Right, so I don't even use the clip when I carry it. It just sits in my pocket. That's why I'm struggling with this whole thing.
Right.
Well, just say that mark of the maker. Next time someone asks, says no.
Based on official feedback, the corporate line for Mark of the Maker.
I will say, as I've become more confident in my knife making skills, it's become easier to say no.
Yeah.
Yes, that's come with age for sure.
Yeah. Because some things I just don't want to make. And the problem is, in the past, I'd say, yeah, sure, I'll make it. I still don't want to make it. And oftentimes I didn't. And then I said yes and didn't make it. So it's better just to say no up front a lot of times.
Yeah, I have to get better at that. That's definitely the case.
I feel like I'm still paying for yeses from years ago.
Oh, 100%, dude. 100%.
What okay, so we talked about materials a minute ago, but what about the dendritic cobalt thing? Sal, that was something you got into, I would say, before a lot of people did. I think for the tactical side, it was something that I first saw on your knives, even though I know it's got boy right in the name, right? So it's not like you invented it or something, but you brought it into the tactical side of things, or at least kind of helped get a little bit of prominence for that material. You want to talk about how that happened? And
sure. I mean, stellite was at the time, and probably still is, very difficult for me to get. And I found the opportunity to get this, and it fits the same. It checks all the same boxes,
Yeah.
And that's basically why. And as it turns out, who I'm getting it from, they're just great people. And,
right.
And that all came full circle just recently, actually. I didn't even realize the whole story in the beginning while I was getting it. And it's been a very interesting material. It has some qualities to it that I can't explain. And I've actually tried to test it to explain it. And I don't know if I've done any good to do that. Like, it doesn't rock well hard like a blade that you heat treat would.
Right.
It's under 50.
Right. So it has, but you can't cut it. You can't put it on a bandsaw and cut it. Now, I have cobalt blades on my bandsaw that I can friction cut a hardened piece of steel. A 75 Rockwell saw blade I can cut on my bandsaw. I can't touch this BDC with the same blade.
Yeah, because you're trying to cut the same thing. They're cobalt and cobalt, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
but they're not the same thing.
No, I'm not trying to argue. I'm trying to understand it because it baffles me. I mean, the way I could on the
stellite. I mean, you're using a cobalt blade, and that's what I mean. Stellite, talonite, all those are kind of the same thing. And I think Boyd dendritic is also cobalt alloy. So
it is. Absolutely.
I know, but like a harder rock breaks a softer rock, so it's like it's
exactly
weird.
That's what I'm trying to explain.
It's very weird.
But you just said your saw blade is cobalt. So cobalt and cobalt.
But don't you cut steel with the steel blade?
Yeah.
Right. Well, what I'm saying, I could take a saw blade.
Bimetal. Yeah.
Take a circular saw blade. Some of the material I've used to make knives in the beginning was these saw blades that we used on the job to cut steel.
Yeah.
And it is slow, water cooled, high speed steel saw blade. And if you Rockwell test them, they're 75. And I can cut a pattern out of that material with no problem on my bandsaw at that hardness. But when I take the same piece of BDC and try to do the same thing, it doesn't even bite it.
Right.
And that's what I can't understand.
It's like the Stellite too. It's soft, kind of softy, gummy stuff, and you're like, nope, not gonna happen.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, you're trying to compare apples and oranges. The cobalt alloys aren't steel, so you can't compare them to steel. Their wear resistance is so far off the charts; it's kind of crazy.
Right.
But it's a crazy, weird material. Really cool stuff for certain specific applications.
It's just weird, Tom. We're saying 75 beats 45, and it's weird.
If you're comparing apples and apples, yeah.
You're right. Tom is absolutely right. And it's just hard to, you know, maybe
it's
I'm
weird because it looks like steel, and we expect it to act like steel, but it's not.
Right.
Yeah.
But it holds an edge. Amazing if you don't try to cut steel with it.
Oh yeah. And it also slides through meat. It's got a weird friction coefficient type thing. It's like slick almost when it cuts through meat.
Yes.
Pretty toothy, so it makes a great hunting knife or
Absolutely.
cardboard cutting knife. Nothing better.
Absolutely.
So Sal, how did you come across BDC? You have a basic, right? Is that how you got exposed to BDC in the first place, or?
No, trying to remember how I got it. Somebody hooked me up with a bar a while back, and once I started using it, I researched who I can get it from, and it's them, and you know the boys, and I've been getting it from them ever since. I bought a pretty big supply back a long time ago, and I've used it down to the last couple of bars, and I recently got more.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
It's really fun to drill holes in.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The hardest thing to me is to get it flat to start with, because it's, you know, it has its little nubs and whatnot from being cast.
And it's not magnetic.
Right. Well, that's the other challenge. But I've found those combs that you use on the surface grind to hold it quite well. And I don't have to two-sided tape it.
What are you using? Sorry.
It's like a comb. It's a
what are those
spring
called?
steel. Yeah.
There's a name for them. I have to look for them off and on eBay. We've talked about that before, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. And yep, I'd have to
What is it?
step
When
away
you
to
say
try to
we, I don't think you
They're called
include me.
Magna something.
Magnalock.
Magnalocks. Yeah.
But it's basically, it looks like a comb. It has fingers in it, and the thickness of it would be, I think they're only about 60 thousandths thick, and it has a flexure ground into it, and they're bent. From the flexure out is bent, so that when you put it on your magnetic chuck, it traps the work, and when you turn the magnet on, it pulls the flexure down to the magnet, and it puts inward force on your part, and it stays pretty well. It doesn't move.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Dude, you're going to have to share a link of this wizardry with me.
Okay.
Because I've been super gluing that crap, and every once in a while you take a little bit too much, and boom, there goes the blade.
Shoots it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you still you block it in besides, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll
But they're
take a
not
picture of
cheap.
what I have and send it to you.
Anytime I've found them on eBay, they've been stupid expensive.
Yeah. I can't understand why.
No,
I
it
mean,
just looks
there's
like
not
a
a whole
piece
lot
of
to
metal
it.
with, yeah.
So Sal, when you say the BDC thing came full circle, what do you mean?
Well, when I first started buying the material, I didn't realize how cool the people were that I was buying it from,
Ah, right.
you know? And then I did, you know? I mean, as far as his book, I got a copy of his book, How to Make Knives. It's, you know, I got to meet him at the last Blade show,
Right.
and it was, that's when it came full circle, when I got to meet the man.
That's really cool.
Yeah, you met him at the same show we met him at, right? Where we took the picture and stuff. This past
Yeah.
Blade show. Yeah.
Yeah, we must have passed each other walking around to the other room, but
Right.
yep.
I think
Definitely.
we did, actually.
Very cool.
Okay, well, since we're talking about shows, what shows do you do, man?
Well, the New York show is something I've, you know, since I'm so close to it, that's a major part of what I do. And the blade show, I mean, I haven't exhibited at a blade show in a few years, but I do enjoy going to that. I was at it last year. And that's basically it. I mean, if I ramp up again to the point where I need to do more than a couple of shows, then, you know, I've been an exhibitor at the Tactical Knife Invitational, and I thought that was fantastic, but it's been a while, so.
Sal, did you do the Vegas show, The Gathering?
Oh, yeah. Well, I haven't done that in a while either, but yes, I did a few gatherings.
Okay, I was going to say.
The first bunch of gatherings, and they were great. They were definitely great.
I was going to say, I thought I remembered seeing you out there.
Yep. No, that was a lot of fun. That was probably one of my most favorite shows to do, just because the way it was set up.
Yeah.
But I haven't been to that in a while, so that's that.
What do you like or dislike about shows, Sal?
That's changed over the past. That's more the camaraderie and seeing guys like you and other friends. That's what I like about them. The stress of making it happen, and you know, and where I'm at and where you guys are at are different, because the show is not. I don't want to say it is like an ego trip, but it could be part of that. Like, you know, just to be in the environment and not being full time and then doing the shows. It's like, you know, all the exhibitors are there. Some of them are there for different reasons. You know, some of them need to do the shows and some of them don't, but they're just doing it because of history. You know, they've done it so many times. But there's nothing I don't like about it except, you know, the expense maybe and the time it takes to prepare for it and what you're not doing when you're getting ready for it. But shows are great. I just think they're great.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed the this last New York show. First time being there, being able to shoot the shit and stuff. I enjoyed that one.
Oh yeah, so did I.
Sal, it sounded like part of the thing that's cool for you is that you kind of get to step away from your day job and, oh, hey, I'm here. I'm a knife maker and I'm part of this thing. And you know what I mean? Like, you're in that situation very directly when you're at a show, right? And able to exhibit at it.
Yeah. I'm not trying to give people the wrong idea either. You know, I mean, it's frustrating you know, wearing many hats is not always easy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But, true.
It's fun to be able to be a part of it. I'm thankful that they, you know, welcome me to exhibit for the amount of knives that I make a year, and still be able to do that is pretty great. And I hope to still be part of that.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to clarify, Sal. I know we talked about the Boyd dendritic steel, but I did want to make sure that you were on record for having D2 as your favorite steel. That's correct, right?
You know, Paul Boss, he treated D2. I was, stuff is, I don't know. I can't see people not liking it, you know.
Tom's trying to circle the wagons at every opportunity.
Save. Good save.
I did a lot of my earlier knives with D2. You know?
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I definitely use D2. In fact, and the reason why I use D2 is I don't know if people, I didn't have that many knives done, but I actually had some of my blades hard chrome plated.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
Industrial hard chrome plated, so that you know, the wear resistance on the outside, the scratch resistance, and the resistance to rust was off the charts at that point. And then having D2 for the edge holding, you know, that's what I thought was pretty cool about it. And yeah.
All joking aside, what would you say is your favorite steel?
I haven't used enough of the newer high-tech steels to tell you for sure. Because if you know, any of the steels that I've used, I have no problem with holding an edge and having them work right. I mean, S3V is, I've used a little bit to try to get the finishes on it that I wanted to. I was very disappointed.
It's ugly shit, so.
It's hard.
But for usability, can't beat it.
Yeah.
And a lot of Damascus too. So much of the Chad Nichols Damascus. I love using that stuff. And Damasteel, I love using Damasteel. That's really the last few knives I made out of Damasteel's got me wanting to make more. So
Good stuff.
yeah.
I hate the muriatic acid.
Why?
It's cheap. Do it outside. Throw it away.
I guess it rusts everything in the shop.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Do it
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah, I do it
Yeah.
outside too.
I guess so.
What amazes me about it is it breaks glass. It doesn't. I left some in a mason jar and picked up the top of the mason jar, and the top stayed right, fell right in the. Didn't take long for that to happen.
Check that out.
Damn.
Yeah, you don't want to store it in glass.
No, I don't store anything.
No.
It goes away.
That's smart. Maybe that's what I need to do.
Yeah, buy yourself the cheapest. Buy yourself the cheapest. Little what do they call them? Little cooker, hot plate.
Yeah.
Crock pot?
No, hot
Yeah,
plate.
just a little hot plate.
Single
get a
burner
cheap
hot plate.
pan, and then
20
fill it with
bucks.
water and heat it up in there, and then toss it all away.
Do you put it in like a glass mason jar or something, or in the
I have a
homemade
glass
double boiler?
pint. Something.
I was going to say, it's a pint
basically-
glass, ain't it?
What's that?
I was going to say, it's a pint glass, ain't it?
Yeah, it's like a beer glass. I clean it all and then clean it all good and put it back up after I'm done.
Okay, I'll have to try that. I've got a blade on the bench that I'm needing to do and for a customer, and I haven't wanted to.
Yeah, and then after you're done, do a quick little dip and maybe a little ferric chloride to darken it up just a hair if you need to, and ta-di-da.
Cool. What finish are you hand rubbing those out to before you etch them?
Me or Sal?
But either one.
I do 600 or 800. I've talked to people about some of the stuff. You need that refractory, or not refractory. Or why am I thinking that? Refraction. You need something to bounce it back to you. Kind of like looking at a wet road when you're driving. Your lights just go forward instead of bouncing back.
Reflection,
nothing to-
reflectivity.
Yeah. But the opposite of that.
So question, in the past when I used it, when I did a hand rub finish on it, I had a real hard time getting the resist to stick. Are you using nail polish on that as a resist?
I do. I still do. You went to rubbers, didn't you, Sal? Not rubbers,
Yeah.
but rubber washers.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we had a long talk about the resist and stuff like that, and he made some really cool ones.
I made some titanium discs with rubber seats, and I'll just screw it right through the pivot with a.
Wow.
And it's quick and easy, and you actually drill the hole in it for the wire, because I would typically put the wire through the pivot hole. So I just drill the hole through the disc on an angle, so I could put a wire through it, and 2 seconds, screw it together, and it dips fine, and it doesn't bleed underneath the rubber at all.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
crafty.
I bought
Yeah,
the rubber and
Smart and everything.
never made the rest of it. No, I the hard as nails, like Sally Hansen hard as nails. If you let it set overnight, just keep an eye on it. You'll be fine.
Okay.
I've used some of the paint sticks. The first ones I used were fantastic. Second ones didn't hold. So
Same.
Kinda
Second one sucked.
weird. Yeah, very weird. Do what Sal does. Make cool things that work.
Good plan.
I'm not sure where I got the idea to do that, but I'm sure I got it from somebody. It works. It's not that hard. Once you make it, it's, it just goes in a little drawer in your Kennedy box, right?
Yeah. No, we talked about it for a while. You just actually pulled it off, and I just sat on it.
I like Damasteel.
All right.
It's such a nice material.
Yeah, it's clean. Very clean looking stuff. But like Chad's too, just different
Oh, yeah.
materials, different applications. So a fun question. Are you ready?
Okay.
If you could spend a day with any maker, dead or alive, who would it be?
Okay. I did give it some thought, and I would say Michael Walker.
Good choice.
Good.
That's a real good choice.
Yep.
I mean, he's always pushed the envelope, and yeah, I could only aspire to do anything remotely like what he's doing, and what he's done.
I would love to go to his shop and spend a day with him in a shop, because from the people that I've talked to who are knife makers that have been there, they're like, I guess he builds a lot of his own tools and tooling, and they're like, I don't understand how those machines work. It's like they're so complex and crazy out there that it's not intuitive, which is really cool.
Right. He's definitely next level.
Yeah,
For sure.
Be like a Tool Disneyland kind of visit.
And I don't know if I should say this or not. I've had questions, and I've asked him, and he's answered them like right away. Like it's to be able to communicate with a guy like that that can help you is unbelievable.
He's a super good dude.
Yeah.
Very cool. So Sal, what would you want to take away from that? Just like the whole, Michael does amazing stuff, and I just want to be in the shop for the day, or do you have specific stuff you would want to ask him about? Or
I have like 1,001 questions to ask him about the pantograph.
Yeah.
How do you make a pantograph do that?
Right.
Or something like it. That's really that's the most of it. I mean, just besides his level of detail and execution and mechanisms, just forgetting about that, because I can't even, that's just another level of craziness. I just to use some of the machines that I have to the best of their ability that I'm capable of doing with them. I think he'd be very inspirational and influential in that department.
Sure seems like it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Sean, do you want to ask another one of these fun questions?
Yeah, man. What's your favorite movie knife? You got one?
I really don't. Yeah, I don't know. The one that's popping into my mind is the Bowie from that. What was that movie with Stallone and Schwarzenegger and The Expendables?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah.
That Bowie from The Expendables.
The big brass back one?
Yeah, the brass back Bowie from The Expendables. And that's not my style of knife, but definitely. I mean, look at that thing.
Oh,
Yeah,
dude,
it's pretty
I mean,
high.
it's wicked cool. And the brass back Bowie's a classic design.
Yeah.
Who made that?
Gil
Hibben.
Hibben.
Gil Hibben, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it based off a Musso kind of look?
That I don't know, man.
Oh,
See, I always just referred to it as a brass back Bowie as a look of its own. Because I know they've been around for a while.
Huh.
Well, the Musso always had that brass line across it, or brass, or whatever they wanted to use at the time.
Yeah, I've seen
Unless
it.
I'm thinking of a
I've seen
whole-
it brass.
It got real quiet though, so maybe I'm way off on that one.
Well, no, dude, I'm looking at the Musso Bowie here, and it's, down to the guard, it's pretty much the same.
Okay. Yeah.
Sal, we didn't really talk about too much about if you collected knives or not, but we're going to make the assumption that you do, because that's kind of what, as knife enthusiasts, we seem to collect stuff. If you could add one knife, any knife, to your collection, what would it be?
Oh, where price is not an option? Not a
whatever.
restriction?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, man, you got me stumped.
It could be more than
I'm
one.
racing now. Oh, man.
It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be crazy. It can be whatever you want. King Tut, dagger, whatever.
Tom Crine and D2, whatever you want. It could be anything.
Yeah, Packwood.
Exactly.
It can be really sexy.
Dude, I mean, oh, man. That's very limiting, because it's endless. I should have wrote this down in advance, but I didn't. So, I'm going to say an Edmund Davidson Integral fighter.
Oh, nice call.
Ooh,
Very cool.
super clean.
His work is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that what gets you about it, Sal? Is the design piece executes the total package kind of thing?
Yeah, the complexity of removing that much material and having and having it look the way it does when it's done. It's amazing. And there was a knife you guys. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Sal.
No, you guys posted a knife a while back too. That was an integral. It had carbon fiber handles and it was integral Damascus, but the bolsters went 90 degrees.
Oh, that
came
was
across the top and the bottom. Yeah, they're doing some crazy stuff too.
Those guys are insane.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of that, did you see the sword they finished?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, man. Oh.
Yeah.
That thing's nuts.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, to say the least. I mean, damn.
Those guys are hurting my feelings.
I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, oh yeah. You guys see the integral that Lochner's working on?
No.
Just filing it away. It's on his-
Wolfgang?
Yeah, how is that even possible? Like, I know.
so many files, so much work.
It's amazing.
Yeah, but it's going to be
amazing.
so pretty.
You know, one of the probably most fun things that I have had in a recent knife show experience was when we were at the New York show. We went wandering around looking at stuff, and Sal came with us for a little while to look at some things, and it was just really cool. We had a couple different people join us along the way, right? Dave joined us for a few minutes, and it was a really cool. I don't know, it's a fun experience, right? Because to me, it reminds me of the whole. It takes you back to the like, why are we here, right? Like what got us interested in this stuff, and what turns us on about different knives, and that was a really, really fun experience. I really enjoyed that. So like we've talked about before when we talked about the New York show, if you get a chance to do that, right, grab some friends that have been around the thing for a little while and go walk around the show with them and look at some cool things. Cause there's so much awesome stuff stashed away in cases, and a lot of it gets overlooked, right? Like people don't spend the time to go dig into those things. You just kind of go by, oh, look at those funky fixed blades or whatever. And they just go right on by. But there's so much cool shit buried in those.
Those are
You find
treasure
a crock.
chests. Yeah.
Yeah. Mark, I haven't wanted to tell you this. I got the Kronk for Christmas.
Oh boy. Okay. Okay. Just
That's a question that should. I'm sorry to interrupt you here, but that question of which knife, you should almost have to ask that in categories, right? Because
yeah, that's fair.
I'm still thinking about it.
That question right there, it can ruin you.
Yeah.
That might be a really fun future episode, a topical episode, is where we pick different categories and we each have to pick a couple knives from each category. That'd be a fun thing to do, wouldn't it?
Let's do that next.
Yeah.
I like that.
Favorite color of pack of wood.
That's a good idea, Sal. You mind if we steal that idea? Do it by category?
Help yourself.
Maybe we'll get Sal to phone in or send us his picks from the categories too, so he can be part of it.
I like
Yeah. That'd be fun.
We don't want to steal your idea outright. That's rude.
No, I mean that's what it's all about, right?
We'll just edit this part out.
It sounds like that was my idea.
Right. Here's this
Don't know what you're
wonderful
talking about,
idea we
Sal.
came up with.
No proof.
Yeah,
Too funny.
good.
All right. And you guys got any last questions for Sal? We're starting to run kind of long. We should just try to wrap this thing up.
I don't know. What are you working on right now? What have you got any new designs, or are you working on some more GMCs? What you got
I'm
going
working
on?
I got a little pile of GMCs that are all in various stages of finish, and I have some bow ties that are just about finished, a few. And as far as designs, not really. It's going to be trying to get my pantographs to help me with executions of these GMCs. That's basically where I'm focusing my energy on.
Are they orders, or are they just kind of how are you going to be selling those?
So I do have orders, but now I'm going to be making variations of the same model where they might not all be double bolster, and I got to see if they fit the expectations of the people who are waiting for them. I'll have to take it from there.
Sal, someone you might use as a resource is Bob Dozier on the pantographs. He's been working with those for years, and he's pretty knowledgeable, and I think you and him get along pretty good, but he could probably help you with questions.
Right. We'll definitely, yeah.
One of those GMCs with the BDC blade and Westinghouse, falls off the back.
You're biting on my request, man. Come on.
Falls off the boat or, the package truck. Just let me know.
Okay.
GMC and BDC, that's acronym central, but that's it. That's where it's at.
I'm surprised I got all those right.
Sal, what do you call?
Thanks.
What do you call the dagger with the hole in the handle? The little, it's almost like a push dagger, sort of.
Oh yeah. That's the oh no.
The oh no, yeah.
Oh no, Mr. Bill.
It absolutely looks like it, and it's got Mark's haircut on the top. I like that.
Yeah. Yep.
Nice.
I haven't made too many of them, but they're fun. People like them.
They are fun.
This has been awesome.
It has been good.
Yeah.
It's
Really
been,
appreciate you coming on, Sal.
It's been unbelievable
Yeah,
for
man.
me. I got to tell you the truth, because in the grand scheme of things and all the people that are out there doing what they're doing, I don't feel worthy. And I just want to say thank you very much to all of you, because it's been quite an honor to be with you guys.
And the honor's ours, man. We appreciate this.
Yeah.
Well,
Absolutely. Yeah, and hopefully it was something fun. Get to talk about knives for a little bit with some friends. That's always a good thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Yep.
All right, man. Well, thanks everybody for listening to this conversation we had with Sal Manaro. Sal, what's your Instagram handle so people can follow you on Instagram?
I don't know. I think it's just, I gotta look it up.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah. You'll fit right in around here, pal.
It's just Manaro Knives, I believe.
Yeah, at Manaro Knives on Instagram.
Yeah, at Manaro Knives. Yep.
All right.
Oh, and I got it. Can I plug my new website?
Please do.
Hell yeah.
My son and his friend created a website for me,
Yeah.
and it's ManaroCustomKnives.com.
There you go.
So
It looks
feel
very nice. They did a great job.
thank you. They certainly did. And I hope to keep them going with some content to post, but one day at a time, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Your son helped with some pictures and stuff too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
All right. Well, as always, come talk to us on Instagram at our Mark of the Maker Instagram account. The Facebook group is kind of the place to be because we have lots of conversation there, lots of pictures. We'll pull up some pictures of Sal's knives and throw them in there of some of the examples of the knives that we were referring to that you may or may not be familiar with, showing off some older designs and some of that crazy blue that I talked about and some other cool stuff that Sal has done. And Sal, please feel free to share some pictures of some of your prior work that you think people might like to see. I know that'll be very, very popular thing in the group. So join us in the Facebook group. And as always, we still have a few of these Mark of the Maker. I turned away from the microphone because I was looking at them. We still have a few of these Mark of the Maker Challenge coins left. So if you want one, please hit the website and you can grab one there. We're talking to you mostly from some new microphones that we got, so you might notice a little difference, hopefully an improvement in sound quality, thanks to our merch folks and our Patreon supporters. So as always, high five to our friends on Patreon who help support the show cash-wise and otherwise and keep this thing rolling for us. So we appreciate all of you.
Yeah, we really appreciate you guys.
Yeah, thank you all very much.
All right, so that's it, Sal. Thanks for joining us again, and we'll talk to everybody next time.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Saul.
Thank you guys.
Thanks,
Have a
Sal.
great day.
Thank you, man.
To learn more about our makers, you can find Tom Crine on the web at crineknives.net, in his Facebook group, Crine Knives, or in his Instagram account, at Crine Knives. For Michael Birch, check birchtreeblades.com, Facebook group Birch Tree Blade Works, or Michael's Instagram at birchtreeblades. For myself and the Raygun Bead Project, we're on the web at raygundivision.com. We have a Facebook group called Raygun Division, or my personal Instagram, at msteiner. For those interested in photos, references from the show, or some discussion about the show itself, you can find us on the web at markofthemaker.com, in a Facebook group called Mark of the Maker, or on our Instagram at Mark of the Maker. Last but not least, the ultra cool and haunting background music we use for the show is a piece called Noir Guitar by Stevie's Amp Shack, found at the Free Music Archive and licensed under Creative Commons CC BY 4.0. Thanks for listening.